So what happens when your narcissist comes back into your life? Maybe you've been on a break. Maybe you left them for a period of time. Maybe they left you for a period of time. Maybe they went on one of their month ghosts where they just disappeared. You didn't know where they were. You didn't know what was going on. You have no clue what happened. Or maybe you just decided, hey, I've had enough. I'm going to be out of your life for the next month, for the next week, for the next however long. And they've come back into your life. What's that actually look like? See, for a lot of people, they might think like, oh, like they're changing, they're getting better, like, well, let's get back together. Or the narcissist might hoover and manipulate the person back. Typically what happens when a narcissist comes back into your life, let's say the second time, the abuse, the lies, and the manipulation accelerate and get worse. They don't just start over. They don't start with a clean slate. They don't come back and they're like, hey, let's start fresh. They might say that, but when they come back and you let them back in your life, typically the abuse and everything else that goes along with that accelerates and goes to the next level. I spent a lot of times in talking with people on one-on-ones and hearing their stories and talking through specifics of what actually happened in the relationship. You'll see a progression every single time with the narcissist and how they interact with other people, and especially when they come back. What happens is they'll break up, they'll be apart for a period of time, and then when they come back, what happens is that narcissist will think that everything that they did before, everything prior, remember it's in the past, we don't bring up the past, everything prior before that is acceptable now that they've been accepted back. As a result, they have a new baseline of where to start their abuse, lies, gaslighting, and manipulation and cheating, and from there up goes the next level of abuse. They think that it's justified at that point. Oftentimes, this is because they're coming back into the relationship after a boundary has been crossed with no consequences that have resolved anything. So as a result, they look and they see, hey, you set a boundary, I broke your boundary, you let me back in. That means that breaking that boundary is okay and justified every single time. So what's the next boundary? What's the next step? Boundaries are very important to have in a relationship. Boundaries have two things that you need to remember about them. Boundaries are meant for you to determine how much shit you're going to put up with. And a boundary without a consequence is just a speed bump for the narcissist. Those two things are very needed in a person's life when they're talking through boundaries. The boundary is not just to limit them, to control them, to manipulate their response, their reaction, anything like that. The boundary is for you to understand, hey, if this person crosses the line, I'm getting out. I'm calling it. I'm saying, hey, we're no longer going to continue this relationship if this is how you're going to treat me and act. And so often I talk with people and they'll tell me about a boundary they had in place, or they tell me about a goal, or they tell me about something that they say, hey, I told him he has to do this. I told her she needed to do this to show me that she actually wanted to change. And I talk to them and then I'm asking, are they doing it? They'll be like, no, they're not. Okay, well then why are they still here? Why are you still putting up with that? Because a boundary without a consequence is literally just a speed bump for a narcissist. It's just a bump in the road. It's nothing. So when you set boundaries, they must have clear consequences, and those consequences you have to be ready to follow through. If you don't follow through, then you look weak. If you don't follow through, then that means the narcissist can control and manipulate you multiple times over, because it means they'll keep coming back, they'll keep breaking your boundaries, they'll keep feeling justified that it's okay to break your boundaries because you didn't uphold the boundaries or the consequences. When a narcissist comes back in your life, it will accelerate almost every time. You might doubt me. You might think, like, no, it doesn't. He's going to come back. He's going to be better. She's going to come back and she's going to communicate a lot better. It's going to be fine. It won't. Because unless they're willing to change and acknowledge who they are, it will only accelerate, because they are in a cycle that they can't break out of until they admit who they are, they get honest about what they've done, and they start being honest, and consistent change happens in their life every single day. If they're not willing to do that, it's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to happen. In talking with people with one-on-ones, we'll be talking through and you'll hear about the verbal abuse that happens, and then they separate, they come back, and then there's this mental abuse, this psychological trauma that happens, and then they leave and they come back, and then there's physical abuse that happens, and then they leave and then they come back, and then it gets really crazy where it's protective orders, it's someone trying to murder the other person. Like literally it goes in a progression almost every single time. Might be smaller progressions, but it goes in a progression where every single time you bring the narcissist back into your life, after you've already set a boundary, a consequence, after you've already left, after you already said no contact, after you already said, I'm done with you, I'm moving on with my life, when you bring them back, the abuse accelerates because they have a new baseline to start from, a new topic to abuse, a new boundary to break, a new thing to push, and they're going to keep doing that over and over and over because it's a vicious cycle that they don't know how to get out of. When you set a boundary, make sure it is clear, it is concise, and it is consistent. Because as you have a boundary, you need to make sure that you follow through with those consequences. If you don't follow through, then there's no point in that boundary. If you set a boundary with no intention of following through, then there's no point in having it, and that abuse will accelerate even more. As I was developing, learning, and growing, and acknowledging my narcissism, I began to see in my own life that progression. I began to see in my own life how it would come in waves and how the frustration would get more and more and more. And I started to see through different self-aware moments that I could start to see through therapy, through all this kind of stuff as I'm working through, I could start to see the logical progression in a narcissist's mind that goes from verbal abuse to physical abuse. And I was like, I don't want to get there. So what do I need to do to start changing who I am, to start acknowledging that I'm full of lies, I'm full of shit, I'm full of everything that I have put on my marriage, that I've stepped out of my marriage, that I have lied, manipulated, gaslit, cheat, and what do I need to do to change? I need to start being honest, and I need to start being consistent and striving to fight to change who I am every single day. And it is a fight. And that's why I'm on here. I'm on here to bring awareness about narcissism, to promote healing, growth, and change. And I do that by daily talking with narcissists and daily talking with people that are stuck or have gotten out of a narcissistic abusive relationship. And talk with people every single day, trying to help them heal from a trauma bond, trying to help them heal from the lies that they put under, trying to help them heal from the abuse and to wrap their mind around what the hell happened in my relationship. And then I talk with people that have those narcissistic tendencies, and I try to tell them, stop lying. Be honest. Go through a program, get into therapy, work on yourself, because if you don't, nothing's going to change. You're going to continue your cycle forever. If you guys like what you see here, Raw Motivations, come find me on all the other social media platforms, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Follow and support, comment, ask questions, anything like that. If you're interested in the NARC app that's coming out for a narcissist abuse recovery community, go to my website, rawmotivations.com. Subscribe on here. If you're listening on podcast, Apple or Spotify, thank you so much for watching or listening. Rate me. Just help me get better as I'm trying to promote this message out there and educate people more and more about narcissism and how it affects and destroys lives. Thanks so much.